Dr. Culpepper.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's a great day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is National Stroke Awareness Month. And, you know, we hear about people having strokes, but we don't really know, one, what is a stroke, how to prevent a stroke. What can you tell us, Doc?
Yeah, certainly. So, first of all, stroke is one of the nation's diseases. It is the second leading cause of death in the world. Here in the United States, it's the fifth leading cause of death. So, as you can imagine, there's tons of people who are affected by stroke each and every day. So, in fact, about every 40 seconds, someone has a stroke. And then approximately every 4 minutes, someone dies from a stroke. So it's a very serious disease. But fortunately, stroke is a preventable disease, right? And so we know that if we take care of our risk factors for stroke and we identify the risk factors, that will effectively reduce our risk for stroke.
So what are those risk factors?
Yeah, so I mean, stroke can present in any number of ways. But one easy way to remember it is be fast. All right. And so be fast is an acronym that stands for the signs and symptoms of stroke. So the more common signs and symptoms of stroke. So B means balance. And so you want to think about your balance. If you have acute onset of balance problems or dizziness. And when I say dizziness, I don't necessarily mean, lightheadedness, but more so, vertiginous or spinning type sensation or problems with your gait. Your walking ability might be compromised in some sort of way.
And I'm going to interrupt you real quick because you said vertiginous. And I know that a lot of people are, I've actually experienced it myself, vertigo. Is that what you are referring to when you say vertiginous? Okay. All right. I just wanted to make that connection. Okay. All right.
And of course, there's, central, or sometimes the vertigo can be a result of a stroke, or it can be a problem inside of the ear. And so if you have acute onset of that problem and you've never had it before, then certainly you want to get to your ER as soon as possible, because you don't know. And you should leave it up to a neurologist or a doctor to kind of figure out whether or not it's a brain problem or inner ear problem.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So B is for the balance. E is for eyes. And so eyes can be vision, or it can be double vision or vision loss. And it can be vision loss in both eyes, right? So maybe part of the visual field is altered, or it can just be vision loss in one eye. So that's the E portion of be fast. The F is for facial numbness or weakness. And so if you have sudden onset of a droopy face, an asymmetry of your face that you know that you didn't have previously, that is certainly concerning for a stroke. The A is for arm or leg weakness on one side of the body. And that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the S is for speech. So maybe you have some slurred speech, or you're having problems finding words. Those sort of things are definitely concerning for stroke, and you certainly want to get to your nearest ED. And then the T for be fast is time, because in the setting of a stroke, every second counts. Time is brain.
No, I've also been curious, is there, because as you study this, is there a time of day that you find that, stroke may happen more frequently than others?
Yeah, I think, there's no necessary time of day. Certainly, we get a lot of cases of what we call wake up strokes. And so while a person is asleep, overnight, they might wake up with stroke-like symptoms. And so then they'll present to the ER for those. But not necessarily any time of day. Stroke can happen at any time. As I mentioned earlier, every 40 seconds, someone is suffering or challenged by a stroke.
And I noticed that too, there are severities, the different severities of the impact of stroke. Some lead to, like you said, maybe lifelong paralysis on a certain side of the body. Some people recover from it. I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, so with stroke, stroke is a abnormality of any of the blood vessels in the brain, right? And so depending on how large the blood vessel is that's impacted, depends on the amount of brain that will be involved in the stroke. And not always, but more times than not, if it's a larger blood vessel and that's impacted by the stroke or being compromised in a sort of way, then you're going to have more brain tissue involved. And so those people tend to have greater deficits. And so what you really want to do is that if you have any of those BFAST symptoms or you're concerned that you might be having a stroke, you want to get to your nearest ED, your nearest hospital ED, because again, time is brain with stroke. And so our therapies, the treatments that we can do to help reverse or stop some of the symptoms of the stroke that you're having is very time sensitive. So you shouldn't try to wait the symptoms out. You shouldn't try to sleep them away. Or, I commonly hear people say, oh, I woke up and I had some weakness and I thought maybe if I rested and it would go away. But you don't want to do those sort of things. You want to get to your nearest ED, because if it is a stroke, those therapies may not be available for you if you wait too long.
So, and Dr. Culpepper, why is it that African Americans are at a greater risk of having a stroke?
Yeah, so stroke is really, by and large, the manifestation of uncontrolled disease processes in the body. And so if you have uncontrolled high blood pressure or uncontrolled diabetes or uncontrolled high cholesterol, on and on, so on and so forth, then if those things are controlled, then it's going to increase your risk for stroke. And we know that the number one risk for stroke is high blood pressure. And unfortunately, African American and Black Americans are more disproportionately affected by high blood pressure.
Interesting. And so I understand your hospital, Inova Hospital, has some programs that you're doing for the Stroke Awareness Month. You want to share some of them with us?
Yeah, so certainly. So we are doing, I'm very involved in community education and outreach. And so we have a lot of social media outlets. You can go to Facebook and look up Inova, and we have some information there regarding Stroke Awareness Month and stroke prevention and education. We also have more formal education in the form of lectures, a lecture series that have been going on the entire month regarding stroke awareness and prevention and management of those processes. And then as well, we did some lectures for some of our personnel inside the hospital. And so lots and lots of things going on.
So I can't let you go without asking you this question, because one, you told us before the broadcast, I mean, how rare there are of Black doctors like yourself who are in the vascular neurology area. So, and so we're really proud, to have you there and represent, and also to share this information with us. But one, how did you get into this field of medicine? And why are there so few of us?
Oh, gosh. I can talk ad nauseum about those two things. I guess the short of it is that I've always been interested in the brain. I've always been interested in disease prevention and community education and outreach and advocacy, health advocacy. And stroke, like I was mentioning, disproportionately affect Black Americans. And what I do know, and what we all know, is that it's a preventable disease. So why aren't there systems in place to help prevent or disseminate the knowledge of prevention to the masses? And so me just being, an advocate of health against health disparities, it led me to be more involved in disease prevention as it relates to stroke, especially because I've always had an interest in stroke. Unfortunately, my mom also suffered from a stroke at a very young age, when she was only 40 years old. And that left her with weakness on the left side of her body that she's still challenged with. But again, why? Those are the questions that we really want to entertain and try to tease out so that we can prevent another person from having a stroke. Now, in terms of the amount of Black men or Blacks in vascular neurology, I think that becomes a greater question about Blacks in medicine in general. I think a lot of it, unfortunately, relates to systemic racism and implicit biases against Blacks and African Americans. So again, those are things that we need to address, right? Because we know that Black doctors tend to stay in Black neighborhoods and Black hospitals, or hospitals in predominantly Black areas, I should say, to deliver care. And so if we want to expand healthcare in those communities, we really want to reach out to our young folk in terms of STEM programs and getting them involved in very early on in the sciences and engineering and medical sciences, so that we have more representation in the near future.
Well, I am so happy that you are representing and that you decided to represent here with us today and to talk about, you know, how to prevent strokes. We know that this program can continue to be shared, you know, on our Facebook channel and YouTube channel. And so we're going to do our part to help to get that word out. Definitely. And we wish you much success. We know those student loans or college tuition, the law school, the medical school costs, all of that are prevent a lot of folks from taking that road as well. But, you know, the work still needs to be done. So you, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Have a good